Parshas Ki Savo begins with the mitzvah of Havoas Bikurim. V'haya ki savaya l'oretz Hashem asher neisin loch v'yereshto v'yashavta ba v'lokach tomi reishis kol pri adama. You come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to bring Bikurim. Bikurim are the first fruits, the first grapes, the first rimonium, the first wheat, etc., etc. You have to bring it up to Yerushalayim. You have to give it to the Kayin. And then there's a whole process over here. And then the person who brings up these first fruits, first grains, first produce, and then you go ahead and you give a whole little speech that we're familiar with, is because this is part of the Haggadah, and we say Arami Ovid. You go ahead to the history of Klal Yisrael. Vayanu we went to Mitzrayim. Vanitzakal Hashem Lokeinu. We suffered. We called to God. Vayitin Hashem Mitzrayim. Biyad Chazok of Israel Tuya. God take us out of Mitzrayim. Vayiveinu Lamokom Hazeh. He took us to this place, Eretz Yisrael. Vayitin Lano Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, and now and now Ribbon Shalom, I'm saying thank you. I know that you did what you did for us, what you did for Klal Yisrael, who took us out of Mitzrayim, etc., etc., and gave us Eretz Yisrael, and now this is my way of saying thank you. Every single year, the new crops. So the Al-Shech HaKodesh, very famous Al-Shech, which I've mentioned in past years, this wasn't just you bring up a korban. This was a parade. And on the way up to Eretz Yisrael to Yerushalayim, the people, the cities would come out and with the trombones and the whatever at a parade, and what's this guy doing? This is a basket full of grapes. So there are the Al-Shech wonders. Ma kol ha'charoda hazos? What's the big deal? V'yiskapsu yachad kol ir ve'ir b'chalila maka u'mei zimra v'shir v'zimra, and with instruments, etc., etc. Uv'chol ir yavai ba'yatzel l'krasam z'keina v'shevtel. Every single city. Imagine you go from Eretz Yisrael, from the north, and you go through all these cities, and everybody comes out in a parade. And this is not the only guy. So he wants to know. Ma kol ha'charoda hazos, if you're familiar with Hebrew, what's the big deal? So the Al-Shech HaKodesh famously says, Omnam besim leiv al mashi dilu rabbeinu novoy ad chaychna ba'imar bereishis bar elokim b'shvil mitzvos bikurim shenemar bereishis bikuri ad mosecha. The Medrash says in the beginning of Sefer Bereishis bar elokim. So the Medrash comments says the word bereishis, bishvil reishis, bar elokim es hashamayim v'aretz. The Rebbe Shem created the world for reishis. What's reishis? Klal Yisrael is called reishis. The Jewish people is called reishis. The Rebbe Shem created the world for us, the Jewish people. That's bereishis, bishvil reishis. Which reishis? Because the pasuk says, Klal Yisrael reishis. Number 2, reishis is Torah is nikras reishis. The world was created for reishis, which is Torah. Number 3, the big 3. Klal Yisrael, Torah. What's the third biggie? Bishvil bikurim, shenikru reishis. As the Al-Shech says, who on earth would have picked bikurim as one of the big 3? So, Hachalo Yipole, Ma Godla HaMitzvah Zeish She'olo Levada Nivra Ha'olam? Omnam Zeh Chazda Yizbarach Chofetz leheti v'lo yivakish miyadenu la'achshi v'olamai kilu hulanu rak shenachzik lo yizborach toiva v'nakir ki hu adon hakol v'hu hatoiv v'ametiv lanu tamid. That's because Bikurim is a thank you. And that's all that God wants from us. Say thank you. Realize who gave you this. We should be makir toiva, kihu adayin hakoil, because he's the master of all. Vahu hatoiv v'hametiv lanu, and he's constantly living us good. So the three biggies are Klal Yisrael, Torah, and the concept of Hakaras HaTov. I recently did a interview with someone from a kollel who wanted me to reminisce about Neri Yisrael, the Reshiva, Rabbi David, etc. So when I look back and think, what did I get from the Reshiva? What was the Reshiva's values? Obviously, Torah, Hasmada in Torah, godless in Torah, knowing Torah, knowing a lot of Torah, knowing all of Torah, and to be a Bal Chesed, to be kind, and to give of yourself. And the thought, and something that he always stressed was Hakaras HaTov, giving thank you, showing your appreciation. In fact, there's a medrash that seems to say that Rebbeinu Shalom can almost take anything, kaviyachol, but he cannot take ingratitude. Now again, kaviyachol, ki'ilu. Rebbeinu Shalom despises ingratitude. Everybody has an idea of who their Adam Gadol is. For some people, it's the Satmarov. For other people, it's Rabbi Kotler. For other people, we have a pantheon of Gedolim. And this one excelled in this, and this one excelled in that. But the Tzad HaShavah Shebakulam, they all of them were Machshiv HaKoras HaTov. Some people are bigger Lamdan than the others, some people became the others, some people are bigger B'alei Chesed, some are bigger Tzadikim, etc. But the Tzad HaShavah, the common denominator of every Adam Gadol that I've ever known, is his chashivas of Hakaras HaTov. And I'll give you a couple examples. There was a Bacher who was learning in Torah V'das when Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was the Reshiva. And the guy, for whatever, could not come to Minyan. Okay, they tried all sorts of threats, etc., punishments. Guy could not get up for Minyan. So they wanted to throw him out of the dormitory. It's a bad ashpa. Everybody's at it, and this guy is sleeping until 10 o'clock. They went to Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, the Reshiva, said, can we throw him out of the dormitory? He doesn't come to Minyan. It's a bad ashpa, bad influence. Rabbi Yaakov said, yeah, throw him out of the dormitory. But send him in to me before you throw him out. So they go, dorm council go to the Bacher, says, you're out of the dormitory, but Rabbi Yaakov wants to see you. Well, the guy is shaking in his boots. What's Rabbi Yaakov, lace into me? Right, he says, I understand you don't come to Minyan. I understand that they're sending you out of the dormitory. Where are you going to sleep? I don't know. He says, you can stay by me. This is what we call an upgrade. It's one thing to get upgraded from economy class to business class. But from the dormitory to the Reshiva's house? So he said, what's the pshat? He says, I'll tell you. Because I learned, when I was in Europe, I learned in the famous Kovna Koilo. And your grandfather contributed money to the Kovna Koilo. And therefore I feel an owe a debt of gratitude to you. And therefore I'm paying your grandfather back by having you in my house. And one other story. So this goes back quite some time, 60, 70 years ago. A bocher got chasana and got married. Ramesha Feinstein came to the chasana, and he left a check as a chasana present. So one of the pleasures of doing Sheva Brachas is that you get a chance to open up the envelopes and see how much you took in. They came to this check from Moses Feinstein, I think it's 455 Riverside Drive, or FDR Drive, $500. I mean, this goes back to the 50s or the 60s. $500 is like $5,000. So the Bacher goes to his father and says, I think Ramesh Feinstein made a mistake. He put in one extra zero. And Ramesh, anyway, so father, son, and Kala go to Ramesh's apartment on the Lower East Side on FDR Drive. And they said, I think the Rashiva made a mistake. He says, no, I didn't make a mistake. If the only way to make a mistake is I really should give you $5,000. And why is that? Because your grandfather was a Pesach Pushkin. And I learned by your grandfather. I felt such gratitude to your Zeta that I wanted to give you a big present. Unfortunately, I can't afford to give you more than $500. Hakaras Hatov.